Hey there, welcome to Unit 1, Lesson 2. Today we are going to begin talking about explorers and the reasons for exploration and why it was happening at this time, what actually caused this to be the moment that people wanted to go and explore. So that's going to be our focus for today. Our agenda today is going to be to go through a set of notes in your interactive notebook. You're going to have a page that you need to fill out for today. You need to look at the push and pull factors. Hopefully, this is going to be a review from world history, but we're just going to take a quick moment and review those after we get done with the notes. Then you're going to have two tasks to complete today. One is a short video that is an ed puzzle. And by short, I mean it's like less than 4 minutes long, about the Columbian exchange. That should also be a little bit of a review from world. And then we're going to do an assignment where you're going to read a letter from Christopher Columbus to the King and Queen of Spain and answer just a few questions. So I will talk to you about those assignments as we get to it. Let's hop into your notes though. So you need to have in your interactive notebook, you should have the second topic open, and you should have a page open that is going to go through, and you will fill in the information that I'm talking about here on that interactive notebook page. So we're going to start off by talking about what was happening over in Europe and over in the Middle East that really kind of started to launch this exploration, this idea that we needed to, and I say we as in like Europeans, needed to move beyond the borders and spread out. So the first reason that we want to talk about is the Crusades. Now, you should have learned a little bit about the Crusades in your world history class, but the idea of this was that Christians felt that they had a need to participate in this holy war and to spread Christianity as far as they could, and that God wanted them to be able to find savage groups of people living in tribes and bring Christianity to them and teach them how to be Christians and teach them the ways of Jesus and the Lord and all of that. So this happened, and then the same idea, when it was happening in the Middle Ages, um, continued on past that. And once we got into the idea of exploration and people landed in North America and there were these Native Americans that were there, these indigenous people, they felt the same urge to go out and really Christianize those individuals. So the second reason that we want to talk about was the Renaissance. Now, typically in your world history class, you should have learned about the Renaissance. It's like a time when we see growth in science and technology and art, and that was all happening. But this really ends up having a huge influence on the way people see the world, which is why we say that it is one of the events that launches exploration. The new technology that was coming around, which I'll talk about in a minute, definitely helps them to be able to participate and do this exploration. But beyond that, it made it more exciting. People, now that the plague was over and people weren't just trying to like survive and not die, they could put their mind towards other worldly things. And they're like, what else is out there? What else can I go and see? And so the Renaissance really leads people to want to go and explore more. The next thing we want to talk about is trade. So one of the main reasons that countries tend to go to other areas is because they want the resources that those other areas have. So there was competition about who was going to be able to land in certain places first and get those resources. Who, like, was France going to be able to go here and get this, or did England already show up there and start trading with them? So it's this big like competition. These new trade routes that you see down here in this picture were developed, and we start getting a lot of different resources from different groups or different areas around the world. And that's going to be a huge, huge part because it's a lot of times all about making money. So speaking of money, let's talk about the motivations for exploration. So the next lesson is going to really focus on like, why did England do this? And why did France do it? And why did Spain do it? Those are our big three that we're going to focus on. But really, your overall motivations for participating in this exploration comes down to what we call the 3 Gs. The first of those 3 Gs is God. And that goes back to that idea of the Crusades, that there was this need to Christianize these savages. The second is glory and power. So the more land that a country can, quote unquote, discover and claim, the more power they had, because they were able to create a larger empire basically for themselves. And the third of those G's is gold. So those new trade items and natural resources brings it all back to making money. Countries want more power. They're going to get more power with more land. They're going to get more power with more money. So these motivations for exploration really come down to God, glory, and gold. So the new technologies, remember I told you there was some stuff that was helping exploration to actually happen at this time. So there's 3 new technological advances that I want you to be familiar with. They were not robots like my Bitmoji implies, but these 3 items right here. So the first of these items is a caravel ship. And this is going to be a smaller ship. Now I see, like, when you look at it in the picture, it looks like, oh, it's a giant ship, but because it's not like a little boat that somebody's on. But this was a really, like, in terms of ship size, it was a little bit smaller. It was faster. It was easier to maneuver. This is kind of what, what we think of as like what a pirate ship would be, for example. And so these become really, really easy to maneuver and get from place to place. And it becomes the ship that people will use to go out and explore. The astrolabe, which is going to be that second picture that you see on the screen, was going to be something that sailors would use to help them figure out the angle of the sun. And then in the evenings, they would use the stars to be able to determine their latitude and where they are. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea how this thing actually works. But the people then did, and it helped them to be able to get from place to place and kind of direct them. And then, of course, the last one over here on the right, you should be familiar with, but the compass was going to be able to also be a tool that would show sailors which direction they were heading in. So these new technologies that come around at the time really help exploration to be able to flourish. So the last thing we have to talk about are the effects of exploration. So there's 3 major effects that I want to focus on today. The first is competition. Because of this exploration, we're going to see countries going out and competing for this newly discovered land to be able to get these resources, for them to be the ones that can find the gold and claim the riches. And so this adds some tension to between those European countries. Next, we have the establishment of colonies. So we'll be talking obviously about this a little bit more later in this unit, but European countries wanted to have control over these areas. So they didn't want to just show up and like take the stuff. They're like, we're going to show up and now we're going to put our feet down here and put some roots down here and create these colonies so that they can keep reaping the benefits of those resources, instead of just going and exploring it and being like, cool, we found this, and then leaving. They want to have control over it. And then lastly, the worst of all of the effects was the introduction of slavery into North America. The establishment of the slave trade, where European countries discovered that people can actually be a resource that is traded as well, so that these people would work in agriculture and do the work without having to be paid because of the color of their skin and because they were seen as less intelligent and more savage individuals. So we're going to obviously see a lot of them coming from Africa over to North America and the Caribbean islands and being used and exploited as slaves. So that is the worst, obviously. But by the end of this course, by the end of American History 1, we're going to bring an end to slavery. So, but it's going to be with us throughout the entire course, unfortunately. So that brings us to the end of the notes for today. Let me go to your page. So, move myself over. The notes that I just went through are linked right here. The interactive notebook, if you haven't opened it and made a copy of it yet, is linked right here. Make your copy, fill in that page that I went over. You can use the notes to be able to help you if you don't want to go back and watch the video all over again. The next thing I said we would do is just do a little review of these push and pull factors. Now, this should be reviewed from something that you learned in world history. Push factors are going to be things that would push people out of the region that they're in right now and make them want to go somewhere else. So they were unemployed, lack of safety, lack of services, poverty, crop failure, drought, war, hazards, isolation. What are the things that are saying like things aren't great here, so I'm going to leave here? The pull factors are what pulls them to those other places. So the ability to get a job, a safer atmosphere, better provisions, greater wealth, so money, right? Gold, fertile land, good food supplies, political security, less risk of natural hazards, friends and family. So these are all going to be things that are going to pull you to a certain area. So tomorrow, or maybe not tomorrow, but on our next lesson, we are going to be talking more about like what are the reasons that each of these different European countries participated in this. I just wanted to give you a little review and make you remember like when people are exploring, there are reasons that they are leaving and reasons that they are going to the new places that they're going to. So let's talk about your assignments. You have 2 tasks for today. The first is going to be your Columbian Exchange Ed Puzzle. When you click on this, it's going to look a little bit different in your view. You're going to see my teacher view right now, but essentially you don't have to go to the Ed Puzzle website. Everything is linked here for you. You just click on this, watch the video, answer the questions, and submit it. If you take it and you're unhappy with the grade that you get, all you have to do is send me a message and say, Miss Rush, can you reset my Columbian Exchange Ed Puzzle? I will do it. I'll let you know when it's done and you can go back and rewatch it again. Remember, this video is really short. It's only like 3.5 minutes long. So not making 100 on it is kind of silly because you can just go back and redo it again and fix your wrong answers real quick. The second assignment that you have to do is your letter from Columbus assignment. Now, this is where I'm going to teach you a little bit more of hard history. So as a history teacher, I don't think that things should be whitewashed and everybody should just act like everything was nice and like, ooh, Columbus discovered America. First of all, I don't know how you can discover a place that people already were. He didn't discover anything. He just landed on it and told people in Europe about it. Second, people always want to like glorify him. I mean, we have Columbus Day, for example, that we want to glorify him as being this amazing man who did this awesome thing by sailing on his little boats across the ocean in 1492 and discovering America. He was a pretty awful man, though. Columbus, for example, I recently read a book called Lies My Teacher Told Me. And in it, it talks about how Columbus was not this great guy that everybody sees him as. So, for example, one of the things that he did that I found to be the most atrocious was that the people that worked for him, when they did a good job and they wanted to celebrate, or he wanted to celebrate them, he would go and pick out a young Native girl. So, a child, like a young girl that was a Native American, and then present that girl to the men that worked so well for him and reward them with this girl so that they could rape her. This is a horrible thing. This is not something that a good man does. And I realize things were different in 1492, but it's still awful and not something that should really be celebrated. He wasn't this like man that needs to be, worshiped for what he did. With that being said, what he did was still important in terms of getting the track started for where we are today. So what I want you to do is you're going to read this excerpt here. This is a letter that he actually wrote, that Columbus wrote to King and Queen Ferdinand and Isabella. And then you're going to answer these 3 questions. You can either answer them in a document and submit the document, or you can just answer them right in the text entry form below on your page whenever you get to it. So that is what you're doing today. Obviously, if you are watching this video, it is most likely because you were absent from class. So you already clicked on this video, which by the time you got to it was linked here. Make sure that when you're done with this video and you're done with your assignments, you go and complete your lesson demonstrated form and fill that in so that I can mark you present for getting your classwork done. So With that said, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. If you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. Let me know if you need anything at all, and I will see you for the next lesson.